Taos is nestled in an isolated plateau in northern New Mexico. It isn't an easy place to get to. The roads are windy and surrounded by mountains on either side. I even got stopped at a roadblock by Border Patrol on the way in. I arrived in town on a Friday in March of 2024. It was a couple hours before dark, and I was surprised that the town was nothing like I had imagined. I'm not sure what I imagined, but it certainly was a surprise. It's situated on a plateau, and it is surrounded by lovely mountain ranges. It was getting colder, and I had to find a place to stay, and the hotels were terribly expensive. But at this point, I took what I could get and then quickly ventured on to find a place to eat. It's mostly Mexican food, lots of green chilies, corn chips, and tortillas. That seems to be the average cuisine in this area. Now, along this journey, my focus has been mostly inward, processing things from over the last 5 years of being on my own. The Southwest has been calling me to visit. I'm not sure what the appeal is, but I just had to follow it. I spent a considerable amount of time in contemplative prayer meditation, going inward to access information from my higher self. This is a way to access things that are simply not available through the senses or the intellect. I think of it as going into the wilderness of the mind, and it isn't a feat for the faint of heart. When meditation is approached in this way, one can come face to face with many layers of darkness, repressed emotions, and past traumas that have a way of burying themselves into the deep crevices of the ego pattern, that self-identity that is there to help the human being cope, to navigate in the form world, to be a separate entity. Simply put, this pattern really has one agenda: to survive and to mate, to seek for genetic diversity so that it can attain a kind of biological immortality. And when you think of it that way, you can begin to unravel the game in this world. But also, you can begin to unravel a way to break free. Going into the wilderness is perhaps the true path of a sage. Traditionally, all spiritual warriors have done this, whether Moses, Christ, Buddha, Krishna, Patanjali, or even Lao Tzu. Each one of these masters recognized that it is the open book of nature that holds all the secrets of the universe. That's why the new trend in spirituality, which teaches one to negate all ancient forms of tradition and knowledge, are truly misguided. There's a particular guru woman who dismisses the time-honored wisdom and promotes instead a path of transcendence through conscious negation of everything else in the world. I don't really think she does this on purpose. Just like a lot of followers of A Course in Miracles, they regard the words and teachings as the absolute gospel of truth, and they'll get angry at you and disagree and disregard other expressions of spirituality. In my previous video, I quoted Sun Bear, who said, "If your philosophy doesn't grow corn, I'm not interested." To me, what this means essentially is that while we still find ourselves at this particular evolutionary level of physicality, it is helpful, if not imperative, to actually get in sync with organic life by honoring the earthly mother and the cosmic father as our direct source to the divine. So going into the wilderness, either nature itself or piercing through the veils of our own ego mind, this is the way of the wise. How is this accomplished? That's the most important thing to ask, and it does require some deep introspection. I will share with you what I've learned, especially after 5 years of dating spiritual women and many, many hours of dialectic conversation, travel, and contemplative prayer. What I have realized is that we must learn to reduce everything. I will include in this video an excerpt from a video I made several months ago called Bonding Behaviors. In that video, I cover what is called the Tao of Nobody. Enjoy. Reduce everything. Reduce thinking, reduce effort and struggle. Reduce possessions, reduce debt, reduce shelter. Reduce eating, reduce consuming, reduce participation in unnecessary concerns of daily life. Reduce the seriousness and importance we give to this self. Drop something every single day. Become smaller. Become nothing. No self. Reduce the somebody as compassionately and non-violently as possible. Allow the somebody to grieve the impermanence and unsatisfactoriness of life, and let its heart break that it cannot seem to find the peace, security, and happiness it seeks. Realize that it has no answers for anything in this life, and the suffering it sees all around itself. Allow it to grieve that it cannot seem to escape. But at the same time, realize that we are also the divine nobody, the self beyond the self, the true identity, the mind that is permanent, eternal, and satisfying. This nobody self is vast and boundless. It is what we call the peace of God. Therefore, the message in this principle is that there is a wisdom in not filling oneself up to the top. And this is true in nearly all aspects of one's life. In the classic book Tao Te Ching by the sage Lao Tzu, he says, "Fill your bowl to the brim and it will spill. Keep sharpening your knife and it will blunt." This is fairly obvious when it comes to food, because most diet experts recommend stopping eating when your stomach is about 3/4 full, rather than when you're stuffed. In other words, stop eating when you are still slightly hungry.
The reason for this is because it allows you to be satisfied with less, and it keeps you appreciating the gift of having food. When a person engages in gluttony or overeating, it results inevitably towards insatiable hunger, a condition where one needs more and more taste stimulation just to feel satisfied. Perhaps this is why we have such an epidemic of obesity and addiction in the world today. There's simply too much overindulgence and stimulation of the senses. Through applying the law of being almost full, modesty in all things, natural hunger and natural desire come into balance. This is also true in relationships as well as human sexuality. Think about it. To be truly fulfilled, one should not seek to satiate desire, but instead remain in a slight state of longing for one's beloved all the time, not with lust, but with purity and gentle appreciation. Just think about every activity in human life, and you will find that this principle of being almost full is true. The less you have, the less you need and want. While the more you have, the more you desire. It's endless. It is simply how the mind and the body work.
On this journey through Taos and Angel Fire and Eagle's Nest in northern New Mexico, I touched this realization along a mountain journey, a hint at the sacredness the ancients had long discovered and revered. And I want to tell you, it is available to us as well, even today, if we are willing to put aside everything that stands in the way of this direct realization. Blessings on your journey toward the great heart. And as always, peace be with you.